My name is Carolina Caycedo. I am a visual artist.
My name is David de Rozas. I'm a filmmaker and visual artist.
We are at the Visual Arts Center at UT Austin in our show that just opened called The Blessings of the Mystery. We started working on it 3 years ago when we got invited by folks at Ballroom Marfa. Here in Texas, we know that the major industries related to land have been historically cattle and the oil industry and even the prison industrial complex industries.
We were struck because we were surrounded by fences all the time, and then we learned that 95% of Texas is owned by private individuals.
I think fences and damming infrastructures are part of a similar ideology, something that we call brute force infrastructures. They are, monumental, they're huge infrastructures, they're imposed. It makes me think that the border fences are brute force infrastructures too. And so this body of work are all triangulated in 3 locations in West Texas, which is the McDonald Observatory, the Amistad Dam on the Rio Grande, and the Permian Basin oil fields. Between these 3 is the largest repository of rock art in the United States.
The Permian Basin is like the biggest oil field in the United States, a location that precisely speaks about this natural devastation. If you look at it from Google Earth or satellite images, it looks like an immense area that has been kind of like a bomb. And we wonder also for how long this ecological devastation will take the land to heal.
This is a whole new body of work, sculpture with vintage and contemporary survey tools, survey flags, drawings made of fence patents of Texas. What we want to be is critical about instruments like surveying, like map making, in relationship to the process of westward expansion.
Some people think on the westward expansion as a process that was more free, in a way that people basically took lands, and it wasn't like that. It was a pretty meditative and methodological process where lands were surveyed in advance, privatized, and then sold.
Oil industry and the construction of pipelines, the construction of the borderline, even water infrastructures today are a continuation of colonial processes and land privatization. The exhibition and the film proposes that we start being more critical about cartography as it has been used until today. Mapping, surveying are instrumental to languages of violence that we have been discussing. So map making is not this kind of free of guilt process, right? We have to be critical about it, though it has been a way to construct knowledge and to understand places better. It is not free of guilt. It has come hand in hand with other forms of violence. The map is like a perfect example of a colonizing gaze, right? We're trying to understand everything and everything is clear here for you. There's nothing else to understand.
An interesting tool to create a knowledge, of course, but also a counter geographies that break that flat understanding of the land.
It's not only about mapping the land as we know it, but all those aspects that build up our kind of connection to the more universal core to the earth connections, and trying to see how the indigenous and native people of here understand those connections. How do the indigenous people of this region call the rivers, call the mountains, call the region?
Juan Mancias, who is the chairman of the Carrizo Come Crudo tribe, is the main voice and even the spine in the film.
My name is Juan Mancias, and we're at the place we call Somisec Village.
For the Carrizo, it's not Texas, it's Somisec. The changing of names into names that are the language of the colonizer, right? That's a verbal aggression.
It's all part of taking over the land and utilizing the land, and it continues to promote the fossil fuel corporations that are not human. What do we consider as the critical infrastructure? It's the air, the water, the land, and the human beings. We choose not to recognize the fact that we are part of this earth. Racism is not just about the color of being white, but it's also now about being colonized. how much you've become colonized to that mentality.
We have been complicit with that colonizer gaze through this format that we call landscape, right? If you think about the landscape, it's this window through which, as humans, we look at something. We're outside of that nature.
The West was portrayed in the US by paint and photography as well as cinema as like an immense, vast, empty space.
If we continue to build landscapes and think in landscape terms, we're just prolonging the colonizer gaze, and it's time that we actually backtrack on that and decompose it. I think it's important for us, if we are really serious about decolonizing, is understanding what are the ways of map making, where subjectivities are present, where rituals are present, where spirituality is present. How can we decompose what we know as mapping today and bring it as an instrument for decolonization? Sometimes we think about process of colonization and settlers as something of the past, but the truth is that they keep unfolding into today. I think as storytellers, as artists, as people who produce images and therefore builds knowledge through those images and is influencing people's visions and understandings, there is a very strong way we can contribute to the construction of historical memory